Hello, this is Professor White. Today we will talk about how to solve linear equations, and we are going to use the addition and multiplication property of equality together to solve them. Okay, now let's review the like terms at this point. It's the same set of variables with the same exponents. It doesn't matter what their coefficients are. So this is just a review. Like 2x and 3x are like terms. 2x squared and negative 3x squared are like terms. 4xy and 1/2 xy are like terms. What do they have in common? They can be different numbers, but in terms of letters, they are the same letters and same exponents. Okay? Now, you can add and subtract like terms. You can put them together. Now, the other one was the distributive property. And remember that when you have a number and then an addition, you can work this number in AB plus AC. Okay? For example, when somebody asks you to simplify something, you have to look at the like terms. So you can move them together here. 3 plus 4, that's 7. And you have this situation, plus 2x minus 4x. You can use this distributive property, and this is kind of like this. A is repeating, and this is like x is repeating. You have the 7 here. And since these two are like terms, I can put them together. So that means I can pull that a out, and in this case, that a is x. And you have 2 minus 4. And you have 7 plus 2 minus 4 is negative 2. X times negative 2. And usually you put the coefficient, which is the number that goes with the variable, first. So you have 7 plus negative 2x. And usually you don't even bother with these parentheses. You end up with 7 plus minus, that's minus 2x. So I'm going to use these properties. I just reviewed them really quickly for you when we solve the linear equations. All right, so let's go here. Solve for x. What that means is I want x's on one side. I usually move the little one to the bigger one side. Here's my coefficient, little big, so I'm going to move them to the right. I want x's on one side. What's the additive inverse of 3x? This is added. There's like invisible plus, so that means I'm allowed to subtract 3x from both sides. And I'm going to use the distributive property. 3 minus 3, that's 0. So that's 0. It's gone. Then you have the 4. And here you have 5 minus 3, that's 2x. Now that was the addition property. Now I'm going to use the multiplication property. Coefficient of x is 2. It's multiplying. You can divide both sides by 2. And you end up with x equals 4 divided by 2, 2. And you can always go and check that. You can go and check and put 2 in there. And I recommend at the beginning you check those. 3 times x is 2 plus 4 is that. 5 times x, which is 2. 6 plus 4, that's 10. 5 times 2, that's 10. It looks like it works. Now let's have the next one. Now I want x's on one side, so I'm going to move those first. So 2x, 7x, so subtract 2x. These two will go. You have a negative 4. Distributive property, 7 minus 2, that's 5. That's the first time I used the addition property. Now I'm going to use the addition property one more time. Get rid of negative 5. Add 5 on both sides. Put the line. These two will go. 5x equals negative 4 plus 5. That's 1. So addition property first time, addition property second time. And guess what? Now I need to use the multiplication property. Multiplication property is always last. 5 is multiplying x. So that means you can divide by 5. These two will go. Then you'll end up with x equals 1/5, and you can always check if you need to. Okay? Now, Solve for x. This is a little bit longer. I have x's on both sides, and I have, parentheses on both sides. So let's work it out. Distributive property, that means I can work this in. This is 3x plus 3 times 4. Always remember to multiply the second one as well. Negative 5 times x, negative 5x. Negative 5 times negative 6, that's 30. All right? I have 3 and 5. I always move things to the positive side. So all I did was just use the distributive property here. If you want, you can keep track of your properties. Now I'm going to move that negative 5 to the left by adding 5. That's the additive inverse. So that's the addition property. So I always do the addition property to move the numbers and x's around. These two will go. You'll end up with 30 on the side, on the right, and you have 12 on the left, and now 5 plus 3, that's 8. Okay. Now what do? I need to get rid of that 12. Addition property again, one more time. Okay. So what I'm going to do is subtract 12. These two will go. You'll have 8x equals 18. Now multiplication property. Eight is multiplying x. Just divide both sides by 8. These will go. Then you'll end up with x equals 18 over 8. Always, always simplify. 18 divided by 2, that's 9. 8 divided by 2, that's 4. 9/4. And from your fraction video, you know that you can also write 9/4 as 2 and 1/4. 2 times 4, 8, plus 1, 9. All right. A little bit harder. Solve for x. Parentheses on both sides, and then I have an x and a number. Okay, so I just take this is not the only way to do it, but I'll just show you how to do this one, my way. Distributive property. Okay, always get rid of the parentheses first. Distributive property, work this in. Negative 2 times 3, negative 6. Negative 2, negative, so that's positive 2x. That's the left. Now I'm going to work that in. 2 times 4, 8. 4 times 7 is 28. Remember, I kept that negative. And plus x minus 1. Now, the next step is like terms. Group the like terms on each side of the equal sign. So there's nothing I can do here, but here I can. You have an 8 and an x. So use the distributive property, factor x out. 8 plus 1, that's 9x. And these two are like negative 28 and negative 1. That's negative 29. So at this point, you have negative 6, 2x, and you have 9x. Remember? Now, so I did the distributive property one time and a second time to clean this up. X's on both sides, numbers on both sides. They're not all over the place, but they are kind of like together. Now I'm going to move them around. I'm going to move this 2 to the right by subtracting. So I move x's first, just a habit. 9 minus 2, that's 7. That one is the addition property. Now I'm going to move that negative 29. Additive inverse of negative 29 is positive 29. Add both sides. Addition property one more time. Always use addition property first. So these two goes. 29 minus 6, 23. Now I apply the multiplication property. 7 is multiplying x. Divide both sides by 7. 7's go. So that is multiplication property. What do I end up with? 23 over 7. You can also clean that up. How many 7s in 23? 3 times 7. And then 3 times 7, 21 to 23. So x is 3 and 2/7. And you can check that by plugging it back to the original equation. All right. You can make them even harder. Things like this. This is called a proportion. You have a fraction on the left, fraction on the right. Maybe your teacher kind of showed you this. I'll do it both ways. This is the way that probably you learn. You're allowed to crisscross. You can go 2x times 5 equals 3 times 4. You can do it that way. And now solve for x. So you have 2x times 5. So multiply the numbers first. 10x equals 12. And now multiplication property. Divide by 10. You end up with x, 12 over 10, which is 6 over 5 because I divided left and right, top and bottom by 2. That's one way. The other way is, it's a little bit more complex probably. So you have 2/3 x equals 4/5. And you can write, this is one way, easy way, with the shortcut. Second way, a little longer, but it always works. Okay, so let's kind of do that. All right, so I rewrite the portion with x with the coefficient notation. And remember what you're supposed to do. The coefficient of x is the number in front of x, so that's 2/3. Its reciprocal is 3/2. Multiply both sides by 3/2. Watch. You have x equals 3 times 4, 12, 2 times 5, 10, which is 6/5. So you can do it this way, multiply both sides by the reciprocal, or think of it as a portion and then crisscross it. You can do it either way. Okay, now I have 2 more problems here. Solve problem. You can either get rid of the fractions somehow, or you can crisscross. There are many, many ways. So I'll do the get rid of the fractions method, and you can use that. To get rid of the fractions, you look at them. And you look at their denominators, 3 and 5. And then what you can do is find the lowest common multiple. And I assume you know how to do that. One quick way is just multiply them across. So 3 times 5, that's 15. And take that lowest common multiple and put brackets around your left and your right. And multiply left and right by that lowest common multiple you found. 15, 15. Watch. Now, what you can do, you can take that denominator and multiply with your lowest common multiple. Look what it does. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 15 divided by 3, that's 5. So you have this situation. 5, 2, x minus 1 on the left. On the right, so that lowest common multiple, go with the denominator. 5 divided by 5, that's 1. 15 divided by 5, that's 3. So you had a 4, right, already. 3 minus x. And now you have a 3. The beauty of that is you no longer have fractions. Now multiply these across, left to right, you have 10. X minus 1 equals, now left to right, well, I want to just put that 3 in there because it's a little easier. 3 times 4, that's 12. 3 minus x. Work it out with the distributive property. So you have 10x minus 10 equals 12 times 3, that's 36 minus 12x. Now this equation looks way better than this guy. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add 12x on both sides to group the x's. So you have 22x equals, these two go, 36. Now I want to get rid of this negative 10 by adding 10 to it. Now you have 22x, these two go, 36 plus 10, that's 46. Last step, multiplication property last, remember? Divide both sides by 22. These two go. 46 divided by 22, that can be simplified. 46 divided by 2, that's 23. 22 divided by 2, that's 11. And you can check your answer by plugging it back all the way to the original equation. That's the best way to check things. Okay, what happens, this is a little bit above the beginning algebra level, but, you know, it is, you know, if you want to push yourself, you're going to redo this rational equations in intermediate algebra. This is a good way to start. So I'm pushing you, so remember that. Now, let's do it the same way. You have a 3 and a 6 in the denominators. What is the lowest common multiple? That is simply 6 because 3 goes into 6. Put your brackets around. That's not the only way. And multiply both sides by 6. Just get rid of those fractions. Now what you're going to do is you're going to FOIL this out. And it's just the long way, but I'm going to tell you how that works. 6 divided by 3, that's 2. So you have a 2. You already had a 2 in there. That's the first one, this first thing. This whole thing is this guy. Now you have a 6 and a 1. So 6 times negative 1 is just, let's change this to negative 1. 6 times negative 1, that's negative 6. That's on the left. On the right, guess what? When I multiply these two, x over 6 times 6, I'm going to get just simply an x. The 6 will go. But the thing is, the next one, there's nothing in the denominator. I'll just simply multiply 3 and 6, 18. Now let's clean this up a little bit. 2, 2, 3. So that's 4 times 3, that's 12. And now you have 4 times negative 1, that is negative 4. You have negative 6, that's the left. And on the right, you x minus 18. Okay? Now let's take off the x. These two go. So you have 11x. Let's put these two together. That's negative 10. And you have a negative 18. And now this, again, looks way better than this guy. So what you're going to do, you're going to move that 10 over. So you have 11x. These two go. Equals negative 18 plus 10. That's negative 8. Now you have an 11 multiplying x. Divide both sides by 11. Guess what? You ended up with x equals negative 8 over 11. And you can take this and put it in there. So if you kind of lost me at this point, just be patient. We are going to go over this in intermediate algebra one more time.